Hey scholars, welcome to chapter 11.3, and we're looking at how should we manage and sustain fisheries and marine fisheries. And we're also going to get a guest speaker looking at this named Brett Alger, who is literally, that's his job, is to basically manage commercial fisheries for all of the eastern seaboard, which is kind of cool. So hopefully you get a chance to watch him. Or maybe you already have watched him. But we're taking a look at estimating and monitoring fisheries populations. And that's the first step, is figuring out what do we have as far as population-wise, how do they interact, etc. We got a few bits of vocabulary for you. The first one is maximum sustained yield, or MSY. And that is kind of the traditional harvesting or traditional approach to managing harvesting fish. And that is the maximum number of fish that can be harvested without causing a population drop in that species of fish. The second one is a little bit more, I think, the newer way of thinking. It's called optimum sustained yield, or OSY. And you're not only doing exactly what you did in the MSY, maximum number of fish to be taken without decreasing or huge drop in the population, but you're also factoring in how that species interacts with other species. And that is kind of it's harder to put values to that or manage that, but it is a better way, because you got to think about it from the ecological standpoint, not just one fish species by itself. The third term is multi-species management, where you're not only looking at the specific species again, but you're looking at the competition that species has with another species, the predator-prey interactions, basically the whole ecology. So that really does go back into optimum sustained yield. And you got to look also at large marine systems by using large complex computer models to really determine how these things are done. How are these organisms interacting? But look at their numbers at the same time. So that's your first step, is estimating those fish populations. One of the ways we talk about this with community management, or coming together as a group. And this is called, some communities have done really well at this. They've managed fisheries without the use of major government interaction for hundreds of years. And the cod fishery, Norway's cod fishery, the Lofton cod fisheries is a prime example of that, where others need co-management, where we need an inshore community but an offshore government kind of using quotas and fishing seasons and managing in that way, so that way it comes together. But a majority of the time we end up having co-management rather than community management, where the community is good. But again, we learned from tragedy of the commons that sometimes, when we're only seeing, one way on ourselves, that can get disrupted. But this way has worked for this community for a long time. Government subsidies can also encourage overfishing, which is a bad thing. In 2007, the World Trade Organization proposed a ban on all fishing subsidies. And a subsidy is basically where you give money to a company that says, hey, we're going to give you money if you keep fishing. The more fish you get, we're going to give you a little more money, because that brings our economy up. And that's one thing. Also, reducing illegal fishing on the high seas and coastal waters is another way of kind of managing that, where you close ports and markets to people who are illegal fishing, checking authenticity of shipping flags and what they're actually what they're doing. If they're not just transporting things, there actually might be illegal fishing going on. And then also prosecuting offenders is a way of kind of using the government to manage fisheries as well. Some countries also use the marketplace, literally the market, to manage and control overfishing. And one way they do that is these ITRs, which stand for Individual Transfer Rights, which basically the government gives each vessel or company owner a percentage of what we call allowable catch, or total allowable catch, what we refer to as TAC. A lot of acronyms here, but TAC, total allowable catch. And the owners are then permitted to use these rights to buy, sell, or trade those. So if, let's say, I'm the company that has 100, I can get 100 pounds of cod, but my neighbor is only given the right to 50 pounds of cod. Well, if I don't catch as much as I need, or I'm making great profits, I might be able to sell my rights to those extra poundages to my neighbor. He gets to get more fish, I get a little bit more money, and we can do some things there. This has allowed to control excess fisheries in New Zealand, Iceland, but it's very difficult to enforce because some people are still doing illegal fishing. And the problems with the ITR approach, there's many of them. And hopefully Brett just talks more about that when he is talking about his job. Consumer choices can also help sustain fisheries and aquatic biodiversity. You as the consumer can literally choose where you buy your fish from. And it's done because in 1997, the Marine Stewardship Council, the MSC, which is based out of London, basically says we're gonna put our seal of approval on companies that are doing sustainable fishing, and they literally certify on the product sustainably produced seafood. So in 2006, one of your local companies, the Walmart, right, the big W, pledged to seal, I should say sell, my bad, only MSC certified fish in North America within 3 to 5 years. That was back in 2006. It's 2012 now, so they are. If you look at Walmart, they should have that MSC certification of approval, which is kind of cool. So that way, when you're at the fit market, you can say, "Hey, where was this taken?" It should say where it's from, how it was, all the whole 9 yards, and if it's certified. Manage also global fisheries more sustainable. Individuals, it's going to take individuals, organizations, and governments to manage global fisheries more sustainable than we have already in the past, which hasn't been very good. So some solutions by managing fisheries, having some fishery regulations, set some catch limits, well below the maximum sustainable yield. Improve our monitoring. That's one of our worst things that we're bad is enforcement and monitoring those fisheries. A lot of illegal things going on. Economic approaches, sharply reduce or eliminate fishing subsidies, which are causing overfishing. Charge fees for harvesting fish and shellfish from publicly owned offshore waters. So a little bit of a fee there. That would probably be problematic for our fishermen, but it would do better for our fisheries. Protect areas to certify sustainable fisheries, like we talked about just a second ago. Rely more on integrated coastal management and establish more MPAs and marine protected areas. Those kind of things. Consumer information, label sustainably harvested fish, so we know as consumers that hey, we're doing good. We're being eco-friendly by buying only the best caught fish in the best possible ways for the environment. And also publicize overfish and threatened species. That way we keep them off limits, and we do some good things. Bycatch is another problem that Brett talks about, or will talk about, or has talked about in his video, and looking at what type of nets to use, using wide mesh nets to allow escape of smaller fish, using net escape devices for sea turtles, seabirds, and ban throwing edible and marketable fish back into the sea. And so that might be a couple of different issues that we can deal with bycatch. Aquaculture, restricting that was one big thing that you guys hopefully will see or saw in the video on the Asian carp. That was because of aquaculture. Restricting coastal locations for fish farms because of the introduced species issue. Control populations more strictly, pollution more strictly, because there is a lot of output of waste by fish farms, and depend more on herbivorous fish species in aquaculture. And then non-native invasions, kill organisms in ship ballast water. If you know what ship ballast water is, basically the water taken by ships once their cargo is let go, so they can sit lower in the water column to not rock as much, and they end up dumping that at wherever port they get to next. So if we kill all the organisms there first, like all the minuscule microorganisms, then we are limiting which non-native species can get from point A to point B. Dumping ballast water maybe far out at sea and replacing with deep sea water, making a quick stop, so that way those organisms that were once in a habitat are probably going to die because they're exposed to a totally new habitat. All right, and that ends section 11.3.